Welcome to the Q&A session for the D8 LARP. In the first time of the meeting, I will be asking questions we received earlier. And in the second part, we'll be asking questions those you write in the chat. And first question is, who are you and what are you doing here?
I'm Cicuta, or Hemlock if you prefer, because it's the same plant. And with this year, I will start a new exciting adventure as the showrunner of the D8 Lab. I have been involved with the D8 project from the start, but usually as one of the many GMs running this game. And this year with LarpVenture, I'm going to be the coordinator for all the other GMs responsible for the game and also for the overall run of the whole thing.
And I'm Słowik. I've played D8 two times and I was showrunning the LARP last year. And this year, hopefully, I will be joining the players at the international run. So I'm excited to be here and to tell you also something from the player's perspective.
Exactly. Słowik has a lot of information about what it's like to play the game because I've actually never played it. I have a perspective from more of a design point of view. So together we can give you a whole picture.
First question, how is it possible that we'll play 10 years of our character's life in 2 days? That doesn't happen in our LARPs a lot. How?
We're going to do that through the magic of time skip. Because usually when you play a game, you start at, 5 p.m. on Friday, and you keep on playing and playing and playing till, 5 p.m. on Saturday, and that's it. Those 24 hours were your game, and that's what happens. D8 is structured differently. D8 is a game that is played in segments. And when a given segment ends, there is a pause during which the players are not actually role-playing their characters. They pick up the game a year later after the pause, and then another year later, and then another year later after subsequent time skips.
So the game is divided into so-called episodes. 8 of them we will play. And that's why we will be able to cover a little bit more than 10 years, depending on the character, because not every episode is happening at the same time too.
Precisely. Sometimes the time is skipped is 1 year, sometimes it's 2 years, depending exactly on which route you choose. You can end up in a different point in time.
What I really like about this design is that the end of the world always happens at the year the game is run. So this time the end of the world will come in May 2024, and probably we will end our game around 2040.
That is a very nice way to sort of start thinking about what has been changing since the year of the apocalypse, because the year of the apocalypse is close, is a thing that you can imagine. It's right now.
Thank you. So the second question, we are talking a lot about chocolate box design, we made it up. So what does that mean that this LARP is made like chocolate box?
I love chocolate boxes, like chocolates from the chocolate box, because you have different flavors. And you can either read the box, read downside of the box, and know which you want to choose because you have your favorite taste, or you can draw randomly among them. And I feel this LARP is very similar to that because different episodes and different scenes have different flavors. And that's why the game can be completely different in tone and in style and in storytelling if you will choose different scenes in different episodes.
The idea behind the so-called chocolate box design is for the player to choose what exactly they want to happen to the character, what kind of scene, what kind of ambience they want to choose for the character to experience at a given moment. And the choice you make for your character is completely independent from other players. Someone would like to experience a tragedy, they go to a scene where tragedy is likely to occur. Someone else would prefer to experience an action scene. They go to an action scene episode. And this is entirely on you or a group of you if a bunch of players decides to choose a scene together. And therefore, depending on, let's say, your appetite, to keep with the eating theme, you can choose the flavor however you like.
only at the beginning, in the episode 1, will be said where your character starts, because the game will help you to create groups, and the groups will be assigned a scene. But later on, it's on you, and you don't have to tell anybody, you don't have to explain why you've chosen that. You can do it by yourself. You can choose to play with others, or whenever somebody is not there. It's up to you. You just need to go to the appointment place and start the scene you would like your character to experience in the next year after the apocalypse.
Which in turn means that separate characters will experience possibly a completely different array of emotions. So again, the chocolate box thing. If someone has only been eating marzipan, they're gonna, feel like Christmas. And if someone's been eating only, I don't know, fruit jelly, they're gonna feel like summer.
Sometimes the construction of the scene is different. Some of them will be more like a freeform game, theatrical and more meaningful. Some of them is like action or drama. Some of them will have time skips. Retrospective will also happen. So we can also visit the world before the apocalypse happened and see a glimpse of your character's life before everything started.
You told us about the bottom of the box. As a player, what do I know about the scene selection? How does it work?
Very simply, we are putting up these big pieces of paper on which we write the introductory information, which is available at all times to all players. Every scene will be described with a short plot-wise introduction and a bullet point list of the aspects of the scene that we feel are important to communicate beforehand, such as, for instance, in this scene you will need to run, or in this scene you will not be able to run, or things of that nature. You will need a bucket, you will not need a bucket, that sort of thing. If you need a bucket, we will provide a bucket, don't worry. So as a player, you can always walk up to these posters and just read everything that you need to know. And also you can ask the GMs responsible for these scenes if you have any additional questions. Using these two sources of information, you will probably be able to weed out those scenes which you really want to go to.
It's not like we are keeping it secret before the game starts. They started sharing the descriptions of the scenes we think that might be the most interesting. You can find them at our Facebook event. The links for particular scenes are already there. And we will share every scene that we have in mind in the game beforehand with every player. So you will be able to read them out before coming to the event, and maybe, if you prefer that way, decide on your route before even leaving the house, or keeping it at the last moment and go with the flow and not deciding anything, because it will be also possible.
But what if I don't like the chosen scene? Can I change it? Like go there and change to another scene, to another chocolate?
Well, if you've already started playing, then usually we don't allow hopping like between the scenes, but there is enough time, I think, between the scenes for you to get the idea of what it's going to be like. Each scene starts with a briefing by a given GM where all the players who are willing to participate in a given scene come and meet. So there's always this moment when you're already there and you can already talk with everyone else and you can sort of listen to what it's going to be like. And usually when someone realizes that this is not a scene for me, because this happens, it's normal, it's at this point. And at this point, yeah, definitely you can still say, you know what, I've changed my mind, this is not the scene for me, I'm going to go over there. And that's perfectly fine.
They are happening at the same time. Imagine that 5 different GMs, or 6 or 3 or whatever, depending on how many people will be playing the game, are taking the groups that want to play the scene to a particular spot in the location. So, for example, one scene will be happening at the lake, one scene will be happening at the cottage. You won't be able to switch when the scenes are already running. And also for the second reason, because you won't be knowing what are the rules of the scene, how to play it. So it's possible before the scene happens because you need to listen to all the rules and how to act out the scene the correct way.
You can also always leave a scene if you're really uncomfortable with it and just not participate. That is also perfectly fine.
Or if you don't find any scene in a particular episode that is good for you, that you think you will be having fun, you can have a nap. We will have 1 hour breaks between the episodes, but sometimes it's more time needed for a person to like recharge. So you can have an episode off.
What atmosphere and emotion should I expect by those scenes?
Because of the chocolate box design, basically any and all emotions can potentially happen. Different ideas have been put together in the D8 labs about what apocalypse might mean to different people. So the scenes which are more like Mad Maxy, action shooting people fighting for the last gas can or stuff like that. But there's also a lot of introspective scenes, things about how does it feel to be there? How does it feel to have lost people? How does it feel to have found a new people? All of these are sort of blended together in these scenes, but depending on which scene you choose, you may experience some of them and not the others. And also, of course, as with any LARP ever, what actually happens depends on the players. There may be a scene which is more geared towards, aggressive confrontation, but the players will find a way to end it peacefully, perhaps. Judging by the past editions, the feelings most often are starting with being endangered in a way of still fighting for survival, going through the growing security of having found people that you can trust, to some form of acceptance of where you are and what has happened to you.
Most of the time when we hear post-apocalyptic, when we hear end of the world, we don't think as much about the people and their stories. But this game focuses on the people and how they cope with the situation, how they will find themselves in the new environment, how they will choose to survive, and how they will choose to build something more, something else, to rebuild or to build from the scratch. There are also scenes that are very wholesome and positive and very optimistic. We are not only giving you death and sorrow and fear. And what I love about this game, when episode is ending and people from different scenes come together to chat, they say totally different things. And some people are crying, and some people are happy and pumped up with positive energy, and some people are nostalgic, and some people are angry. And it is happening at the same time. At the same moment of the story, different personal stories have different tastes.
Basically, you can expect almost the whole gamut of human emotion because, like Słowik said, this is a game about humans. It's not really so much about whether or not there's, red scorpions or acid rain or something. It's about how does it feel to be there. It's up to you what emotions you're going to find there. There's one post-apocalyptic thing that's not there, and it's zombies. You will not find zombies. We have no zombies on this globe.
The whole game is divided to episodes and scenes. Can this kind of experience be immersive if it's cut?
What I think this game does is you are given the concentrated feeling and concentrated moment. Sometimes when you are playing 3 days, you have like 5 amazing moments during these 3 days, and the rest will fade. And in this situation, you have only the best pieces, the best moments. And the scenes are created the way to enhance those moments because they have rules or meta techniques, NPCs, props, or the whole setting to amp it up. That's why I think it's great immersive experience. And then you will have the time to process it. You will have the time to cool down because we cannot be like pumped the whole time because it's very tiring. So you will have those ups when you are playing something that is meaningful to your story, to your character, and then you will have the time to like talk about it or think it through or have a short nap.
I think this episodic structure means that players are concentrating on what is there to be played and not on some other things because you've just had a break. You can focus on what is to be role played right here. And also, you are there with players who also want to be there. In the 8 Lab, you are always in a scene with other players who wanted to be here, who knew what to expect and decided to give their energy into this particular scene with you. So yeah, I'm gonna say it's probably hella immersive.
In the game world, between episodes, even a year or several years can pass. How to
Yes.
navigate this? Like how to determine what happened when I in these places when I'm not there?
It always depends on the person because you can do the whole spectrum of things, starting from prepare everything and discuss and negotiate, or go with the flow and see what happens. And sometimes you retroactively think of what could happen between those two scenes, because when you are too focused on feeling the time, sometimes you won't have the chance to play the scene you really want to. I can be choosing the scenes that me as a player want to enjoy and experience, or I can choose the scene that I think my character will fit the most, or that will be the most logical path for my character to take. And there are no bad choices. Each of them is yours, each of them is possible. You don't have to explain yourself, just go for it. But sometimes it's good to let go and not overthink it, and it will glue together as a good story does, because you are not thinking in your life what you will be doing in a year. You will find yourself in a year from now, and you will be rather thinking, how did it happen I'm here in that place? Of course, maybe there are some people who have everything planned. Good for them. Tell me how you do it.
Again, from the GM perspective, I can say that most players have been doing it sort of like what you describe. When they meet at the meeting point for a new scene, they usually talk about how did we end up here, because that's when they can see the others who came to the scene. This is where they know that these are the people that I'm going to be having this experience with. So, for instance, if it's a scene in which you guys are all in prison, looking at the other people that I'm going to be in prison with, I'm starting to think, okay, I know you, we've met 2 years before and we did something. I don't know you, you are a complete stranger, but maybe that fits as well. Together, they usually come up with some sort of idea of why this happened. And from this idea, you can backtrack to all the other things that maybe happened to bring your characters here. I think this is one of the strong points of the game, that you can sort of discover yourself in these unexpected situations and then make up the reason why this has happened to your character. It's not set in stone. You don't have to commit yourself to this whole path that your character has taken. And this takes a lot of pressure off of the players, or at least that has been my observation.
Some people are deciding in a group what they want to do and how they want to role play, where they want to take their characters. Some people even role play a short scene between episodes. Scenes and episodes are designed to question the status quo and for the people to make choices that will bring their characters to a different place, to a different story, to a different function in the group, or to a different group. Or maybe they will leave, or maybe they will join somebody and invite somebody in. Opening yourself for this change will be good for you, not to be fixating like, I had this idea of playing this LARP that way and I couldn't, because probably you won't be able to plan everything from the start to the finish.
We have a question in the chat. Does each scene has a clear goal? Do you introduce various mechanics depending on a scene?
Yes, we do. Not every scene has a clear goal, but some of them definitely do. If they do, you will be told beforehand. You are introduced to a given scene with a set of information of what's going on, how we are going to be playing this, what are the mechanics. And usually, if there is a goal, for instance, you are in the prison and you need to break out, you will be told that this scene is going to lead to you breaking out of prison. Or conversely, this is not a scene about you breaking out. You will not be breaking out in this scene. The breakout will happen off screen during the 1-year pause, for instance. So some of them yes, some of them no, but you will always know this beforehand.
And also, it changes slightly with the flow of the game. So at the beginning, a lot of things are set in stone in the description of the scene. And then when we are going through the story, the less set in stone details are there. So there is more for players' interaction, there is more for players to decide on. There are also things that will have very specific meta techniques or rules to help you to go with the scene, and you will always know it beforehand from the briefing of the game master.
How much of what will happen outcome-wise is improvised by players? Where are the rails, or are they there?
I was at the scene that went completely different that it was said in the script because of the players. It is possible to change everything if players want, but that was the scene I was the most disappointed because I wanted to be there for a particular reason. Because of this derailing, I didn't have the experience I signed up for. So yes, I don't think that anyone will like said, no, you're playing this whole thing wrong. We need to start from scratch. I think the rails are mostly because of the meta techniques. This is what keeps the scenes going. But if it comes to the plot, I think everything goes through.
I would like to add that we do have the meta techniques, the mechanics, the rules set for each scene, and mostly we do want to keep to them because they are the things that basically define each scene. In this way, we're probably not aiming at modifying these in game, although this may happen and has happened in the past in some very specific circumstances. For instance, when there were so few players in a scene that the rules had to be adapted for that, but they are not the same as narrative rails. If you go to the meeting point of this scene and you hear this is not going to be a scene about breaking out, then we do expect you to comply to that. We do expect you to accept that this is not a scene about breaking out. If you definitely wanted a prison break scene and you find out that this is not it, we would probably prefer you to find something else rather than try to make this into a prison break scene. So in this way, you can say that there are some rails in the scenes, but there's very few of those actually, because mostly this is a game about human emotion, and the human emotion and interpersonal connections are really like the meat of these plots. And these are the things that the players bring. The techniques are only there to facilitate, for instance, the melancholy feeling of the prison or the urgency and fear of the fire or something like that. They are not there to tell you, feel this. They might tell you, do this, but they will not tell you, feel this.
It might be a good thing to ask a game master, look, I have this and this idea for my character. Will it feed this scene? And you will get the answer. And people who run them know them very well. So they will maybe also advise you, okay, with this idea, this scene is not good, but maybe you should try this one. Also, Cekuta here, that will be running the game, will be there for you. And you can ask those questions even one episode in advance or 3 episodes in advance. Or if you don't know what to do, there are always people who will help you. It's not that you're left alone with those choices and with those scenes. There are people who know them by heart and they will help you to choose them, or they will make an advice for you where to go if you stuck in your story.
We are supplying every player with what is known as the director's cut, which is a suggestion of which scene to choose in each episode. It's just a piece of paper, and there's the numbers like episode 1, scene 3, episode 2, scene 5. We choose them based on what we know of the characters after the characters have been created. They are just suggestions. You can play the game following those, or you can start following them and decide that you don't want to, or you can play the game never seeing, never even, looking at the paper. Some players did that. Some players wanted them folded up so that they could unfold each part after they've played it and check, did I go that way? Oh no, I did not. And it was just a little mini game played on the side. That one was fun. The great thing about D8 is that there's really a lot of us there. There's a lot of GMs, there's a lot of people who know the game, who know the scenes. It's not like there's one, scared, heckled creator who can't even hear all the questions. There's a ton of us, and we're all there for you to help you have a nice experience.
Talking about experience, what are some examples of activities, actual activities during the game? What can we do as players?
Actual activities, I think there's going to be a lot of talking, but that's true for any LARP. But there are some scenes in which there's going to be waving safe weaponry around, bats and bits of piping all made of foam, stuff like that. There are scenes which require players to run while carrying receptacles filled with water and possibly spilling that water. Some scenes are more physically demanding than others. This is always marked on the poster describing everything, so you're not going there, blindly. There's some scenes in which you walk around the forest, potentially in circles, potentially in a frustrating way. And there are scenes in which you're eating food. Potentially you can be playing American football. There is a scene of a picnic, so you can possibly swim. There is a scene in which you have to scream. That one is very popular.
Or you are coughing because you are your character is.
That depends on which symptoms we choose. We choose symptoms at the game so everybody is comfortable with them. There may not be coughing.
So we have question about how much conventionality is there in a scene versus how much of it could be called a simulation. In example, if a scene says put on the fire, what would it mean in practice?
Excellent question. It depends on the scene. Sorry, I know this is a cop-out answer, but it's actually true. Some scenes are completely immersive and are just about your acting and about the way you're going to be role-playing your character. Other scenes will use pretty heavy techniques in which the things you do in the game are actually symbolized by the way you handle props or by the way you sit, by some gestures you make, things like that. So this is going to depend on the scene. And again, you will be informed beforehand about whether or not there's actually going to be an actual fire or no.
I like this place in the short description of each scene. You can expect and don't expect. So sometimes it will tell you don't expect any simulation here in the scene. And sometimes it will say expect heavy running and heavy lifting.
That was all about scenes, so maybe we're back to characters. Can I get my character sheet?
The whole idea behind D8 is to have your character go through 10 years of changing. It's very difficult for the character to stay the same. This is a story about what these people went through and the story of how they changed. And in order for a character to change, in order for you, the player, to be able to role play a character changing, you have to know very well who they were. You have to be very clearly aware of who you start as. And you will not get that if you are getting a character sheet written by somebody else, which has things that the person who wrote it thinks it's obvious, but you yourself do not, or you interpret something that's there in a different way. D8 entails a character creation process in which players participate with the GMs. The exact extent of this participation may vary. You may do more, you may do less, you may put a lot of effort, you may put a little bit of effort, that's still fine. But the reason why we don't write out these ready-made character sheets is because this will not let you understand the character well enough to then go through the 10 years of changing.
How exactly the whole process is handled?
There is a short sign-up form. When you are giving the ideas from the perspective of your own character concept, what is the end of the world for me? What the society means for me? What was my American dream? And then you will be feeding some more questions and tasks, you will build the character in your head mostly. If you will be making the tasks, it will be giving more information to the game masters on how do you see the character, and they can prepare more tasks that will lead you deeper into your character. But if you are not, you still will get, I think, 3 or 4 questions to think about or things to make. Some of them might be making a prop for the character to bring with you for the game, for example. I had task to make a playlist that my character was listening in his job, or the most important person that I've lost during the apocalypse and who I mourn. It will be different for different characters. And then you will be creating groups if you're living in groups, or you will be describing some parts of the world if you are choosing the solitary person. Those things will happen on Discord. And afterwards, you have this feeling that you know your character inside out. And you are not thinking what this character would do in this circumstance because you perfectly know. And I know some players that didn't make any of the tasks because they had a ready-made concept. Some of them used the character from different LARP or RPG campaign that was set now and here. Some people were using the same character for more than once and role-played different paths. So this is like very powerful tool.
You talked about making the piece of the world by those people who are not in the groups. Usually we know the setting of the game, and here it's not defined.
Every time the game happened, it happened in a different place in America. But one of the group team task is to decide what place on the map is that.
This is not set in stone. This is something that the players themselves can actually choose. If you tie yourself to a specific place before you know your players, you risk alienating them. I love Louisiana and I know a lot about it, but people who don't, they're not going to feel it, and it's just going to be a barrier to them, or at the very least, they're going to feel pressured to actually go and learn things about Louisiana, and that's stressful. Embrace the freedom. It is America, after all.
It's Undone States of America. That's how it was
Translated, yeah.
We know where, and do we know when? How much time from apocalypse passed?
Yeah, the episode 1 will start 5 years after the end of the world. Pilot episodes, scenes for groups to be created, might happen during the apocalypse or just after apocalypse or 3 years after apocalypse. Each group in the game will have their specific moment when the group started, but then the game itself, the episode 1, will start 5 years after. So we've lost some things, but maybe we had the time to heal some wounds, and then we can have the moment to start rebuilding. So it's not about like surviving the moment when the world ends. It's about what to do next.
As the immediate danger is over, the words "what now" are looming on the horizon big time.
We run out of the questions from the list, and we ask questions from the guests during the session. So I have a last one question. Why is worth to play the D8 LARP?
Well, to put yourself through the ringer, really. D8 LARP is a game which makes you experience the character and the story in a very different way than other games. It gives you a lot of choice over what to do, and the choices are dynamic. You can change, you can adapt, you can go with wherever your emotions or your body takes you. This is not something that many games offer, I feel.
Because of this unusual structure, you get all the highlights in one place. So this game will bring you experiences that you want to experience, help you to create a compelling story that you will feel attached, because you will feel after 2 days that you've run the whole life, and you will enjoy the character like no other because you will know them through and you will put them through. If I'm stuck somewhere in the usual normal game and the game goes on, sometimes it's hard to catch up. And this game has breaks, so I can regroup, I can ask for help, I can find new people. I will play the things I want to play. I can roll the dice where to go and be astonished every time. or I can plan everything beforehand. And not a lot of games give you this experience, gives you this power and this freedom.
That's very true. I would also say that it's worth coming to the D8 Lab because there's actually a lot of different smaller types of stories you can encounter on the way. So you can have a little bit of action, or you can have a little bit of introspection, and I don't know, a little bit of romance, for instance, if you like. In D8, you can have all of these in the amount that you choose. And like Słowik said, you are very unlikely to get stuck because even if this particular scene doesn't actually land the way you wanted and it doesn't bring you what you wanted, you're going to change in an hour. There's going to be something different. There's going to be a whole new array of choices. So I think it's worth coming to the 8 Lab to experience only the highlight without the filler in between, without waiting for something new and exciting to happen in game, to see what it's like to have all these 10 years of a character and not just like one night in their life, which ends and then nothing. To be able to control your experience, to craft your own story, to choose your own ending. Of different smaller types of stories you can encounter on the way. So you can have a little bit of action, or you can have a little bit of introspection, and I don't know, a little bit of romance, for instance, if you like. In D8, you can have all of these in the amount that you choose. And like Słowik said, you are very unlikely to get stuck because even if this particular scene doesn't actually land the way you wanted and it doesn't bring you what you wanted, you're going to change in an hour. There's going to be something different. There's going to be a whole new array of choices. So I think it's worth coming to the 8 Lab to experience only the highlight without the filler in between, without waiting for something new and exciting to happen in game, to see what it's like to have all these 10 years of a character and not just like one night in their life, which ends and then nothing. To be able to control your experience, to craft your own story, to choose your own ending.
This game takes a lot from TV series. So if a classic LARP, let's say blockbuster LARP, is more like a movie, this is actually more like 8 episodes when you will meet your characters in different situations. Sometimes in the regular LARP, we cannot have this story arc that we would love to because the LARP is short. And I think that's also something that is really unique for this design.
I would just like to say that I have been involved with running the 8 ever since it first happened, and I love doing that. I love seeing the players incarnate the characters and make the story go and live it. And I am always super excited when it happens again, and I'm looking forward to making it happen again.
Yeah, so still there is a few days to sign up and to make it happen.
Fingers crossed.
Yes, hopefully see you there.
Thank you for your presence and hopefully see you in May.